Welcome back to Antics at the Armory. Today we're going to be going over some more Dominaria spoilers. We have all of the spoilers for April 3rd, so we're going to go through them as much as we can, touch on some of their viability, and go from there. We couldn't have Dylan and Sebi back, unfortunately, so you are stuck with me today. So first we're going to touch on Rona, Disciple of Gix. One black mana, one blue mana, and one generic for a legendary creature, Human Artificer, at uncommon. When Rona, Disciple of Gix, enters the battlefield, you may exile target historic card from your graveyard. You may cast non-land cards exiled with Rona, and for generic and tap, exile the top card of your library. Alright, so as for standard, modern, I don't see much viability in this card. Commander, maybe. You could build around her. It gives you a little bit of card advantage when she comes in. And an awkward kind of card advantage. You have to pay for and tap her to exile the top card of your library. It doesn't even let you, look at it beforehand to see if you want to exile it. So it's a little awkward. I don't think it's going to see much play anywhere. So we are going to move on to Valduk, Keeper of the Flame. 2 generic, 1 red, 3 mana total for a legendary creature, Human Shaman. Again, uncommon. And it's a 3/2. At the beginning of combat on your turn, for each aura and equipment attached to Valduk, Keeper of the Flame, create a 3/1 red elemental creature token with trample and haste. Exile those tokens at the beginning of the next end step. Alright, so this looks like a pretty solid card. It could see a lot of play in Commander as a Voltron. Standard, it does have some standard viability depending on the amount of aura and equipment support that this set comes out with. But yeah, it's a 3/2 for 3 mana, which is already pretty decent stats. Being a legendary creature for standard hurts it a bit, but I really think that there's a lot of especially in enchantments, like a lot of early game enchantments. So for example, all of the cartouches could really help with this card. Consuming Fervor, a 1-drop enchantment that just buffs up your guy insanely. It does have the drawback of the -1/-1 counters, but that's over time. So there could be a very aggressive enchantment style deck, very aggressive Voltron deck, but it could come out of nowhere with Valduk. Turn 3 you drop this, turn 4 you drop 3 enchantments on them, swing, and now your opponent has 12 power coming at them out of nowhere. So it could be pretty good on turn 4. You do have to exile the tokens at the beginning of the next end step, so they don't get to stay. But all in all, it could see some standard play, especially in budget builds. I don't think it's good enough for modern, at least not with what we have right now, and it's not going to see legacy, vintage, anything like that. Commander, standard, has a good chance of seeing play. Next we have Tatyova, Benthic Druid. A 3 generic, 1 green, 1 blue legendary creature merfolk druid at uncommon. She's also a 3/3. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 1 life and draw a card. So as far as standard goes, this could slot into, a merfolk deck, a landfall deck, something like that in standard. It's an insane ability. Just by playing a land, you get to draw a card and gain a life. So it's very powerful. Standard could see play, like I said. Commander, definite. I cannot wait to build around this. There are so many landfall abilities and so many ways to just ramp out tons of land. This card's going to be amazing. there's nothing better than pulling 3, 4, 5 lands out of your library and then drawing 3, 4, 5 cards, gaining that much life. Like I think this is going to be a very powerful commander, and I can't wait to brew around it. As for modern and older formats, I don't see play. The 5 mana cost really hurts its playability in those formats. Um, Costs too much to see modern merfolk play. Uh, but yeah, it's definitely going to have a home in Commander. It might see play in standard merfolk, so we will have to wait and see. Next, we have Jaya's Immolating Inferno. 2 red mana and X. Legendary sorcery. Jaya's Immolating Inferno deals X damage to each of up to 3 targets. Alright, so the whole legendary sorcery concept is pretty cool. It's interesting, throws a little spice to it, but I think it's going to limit the playability in a lot of formats. So something like this, you're going to probably see standard play. I could see it being played there. The fact that it's X damage to up to 3 targets is really nice, especially in something like Ramanop Red or just any red aggressive strategy. It would work out pretty well. Commander, it would probably see some play in red decks, especially budget red decks. As for that, this just isn't good enough for modern or any of the legacy formats. If it does see play there, it's going to have to be a build around, which really isn't where you want to be. Next, we have Naban, Dean of Iteration. 1 blue, 1 generic, legendary creature, human wizard, 2/1. If a wizard entering the battlefield under your control causes a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. So you've probably heard it already, Panharmonicon. This is Panharmonicon on a wizard and 4 wizard tribal. This is a really good deck. If wizard tribal has enough support in standard, this will see play. 2 mana for a 2/1 is already decently costed. It's not, you're not taking too much of a hit to play it. And then if you can trigger its ability a few times, heck, even 1 time, it can be really good. So this will definitely see some standard play if the wizard deck has enough support, which it looks like it might. As for commander, I can see it being a pretty good build around card. I think it will see commander play either as the commander or in the 99. It worked well with Anala, Archmage Ritualist. Her Eminence ability. Whenever another non-token wizard enters the battlefield under your control, if Analia Archmage Ritualist is in the command zone or on the battlefield, you may pay 1 generic. If you do, create a token that's a copy of that wizard. That token gains haste, exile it at the beginning of the next end step. So obviously this won't work when she's in the command zone, but if she is in play, then it will double the trigger, so you'll get an extra of that wizard. You can also tap 5 untapped wizards you control. Target player loses 7 life. So this card's going to be slotted right into that deck. As for modern play, I'm excited to brew around it. It looks like there's enough solid wizard cards to have kind of a, I'm thinking a red blue tribal wizard control-y deck. Think a Delver Shell with a lot of wizards, because Snapcaster Mage is a wizard, which will go really well with this. I don't know if it'll be a tier deck, but it's worth brewing, and it sounds like it'll be a lot of fun. Next, we have just the basic Sarah Angel reprint. 3 generic, 2 white, creature angel, flying vigilance, 4/4. Nothing really much to say about that other than it's a reprint. Next, we have Yawgmoth's Vile Offering. 4 generic, 1 black for a legendary sorcery at rare. You may Put up to one target creature or planeswalker card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. Destroy up to one target creature or planeswalker. Exile Yawgmoth's Vile Offering. It seems pretty solid. You can destroy a creature or planeswalker on your opponent's side, and you can bring back a creature or planeswalker, and it doesn't necessarily have to be from your graveyard. So you could pull back a creature or planeswalker from your opponent and use it against them. The 5 mana, that's going to keep it from seeing a whole lot of like modern play or legacy and vintage play. Commander, this is going to be really good. It can slot into pretty much any black deck. Standard, the 5 mana is kind of harsh, but depending on the prevalence of planeswalkers in Standard, when Dominaria releases, this might see some play in some control decks. I could see it slotting into a blue-black Dimir or an Esper control. The next card, I'm probably going to butcher the pronunciation of the name, but I believe it is Chalet Voice of Plenty. 3 generic, 1 white for a legendary creature angel at rare. It is a 3/4 with flying. You, planeswalkers you control, and other creatures you control have hexproof. 4 generic and 2 green. Put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control. This is pretty good. 4 mana for 3/4 could already see standard play. Limited, this is going to be an absolute bomb. The fact that it's white and green for commander makes it really nice. So I think this will see a decent amount of commander play, either as the commander itself, this seems like a fun card to brew around, or in the 99 in like an Avacyn deck or a Kalia deck or something like that. Gives you a little bit more protection against some of the hatier decks. Next we have Forebearer's Blade. 3 generic equipment artifact at rare. Equip costs 3. Equipped creature gets +3/+0 and has vigilance and trample. Whenever equipped creature dies, attach Forebearer's Blade to target creature you control. Pretty solid equipment. I don't think it's going to see a whole lot of standard play. Depends on what other support there is for the equipment deck. It is nice that when the creature dies, you get to attach it to another creature you control. So kind of gives you a little bit more value that way. It might see some play in Voltron Commanders. Limited, this is just going to be absolutely amazing. As for things like Legacy, Vintage, and Modern, I really don't see this seeing any play anywhere. The only exception possibly being if Stoneforge Mystic gets unbanned, but even then at the 3 mana slot there's so many better equipments. But yeah, limited bomb, maybe standard playable. Next we have Song of Freyalise. This is a 2 mana, 1 generic, 1 green enchantment saga. On 1 and 2, until your next turn, creatures you control gain tap, add 1 mana of any color. So basically becomes a Cryptolith, right? And on 3, put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control. Those creatures gain vigilance, trample, and indestructible until end of turn. Alright, so solid card, pretty good. I could see it being used in standard. The first 2 abilities are the main selling point. Cryptolith Right is just a great card, and it nets you value no matter pretty much whenever you play it. The third ability, if you're in a token strategy or anything like that, it could put you over the top. I don't see the third ability as being a major selling point for it, but it could help out a lot. The first and second ability, though, really good. In Modern, if you're going to play this, you're just going to play Cryptolith, right? You're not going to be playing it for the third ability. It's always going to be the first and second. Commander, It could see a lot of play in token builds, things like that. Having an extra Cryptolith right, even if it is only temporary, and then having the 1/1 counters put on all of your creatures could be very useful. Legacy, Vintage, Modern, anything like that, it's not going to see any play. But a pretty solid card nonetheless. Kamal's Druidic Vow. X and 2 green, legendary sorcery at rare. Look at the top X cards of your library. You may put any number of land and or legendary permanent cards with converted mana cost X or less from among them onto the battlefield. Put the rest into your graveyard. So, Genesis Wave for legendary permanents. Not bad. I could see this being played in a lot of Super Friends builds. Ramp decks in Standard will probably like this, depending on the density of legendaries they're playing. Commander as another Genesis Wave. It'll be pretty good. Modern, I don't see a home for this right now in Modern. With all the new legendaries coming out, then if a new deck forms, then, you know, this could see some play. Legacy, Vintage, it won't see play. All in all, a decent card, though. Next, we have Lyra Dawnbringer. 3 generic and 2 white for legendary creature Angel. This is our first mythic that we have gone over. She is a 5/5 with flying, first strike, lifelink, and other angels you control get +1/+1 and have lifelink. So think Baneslayer Angel for the most part, except she doesn't have protection from demons or dragons, and instead buffs up your angels and gives lifelink. All in all, pretty good. I would be surprised if she doesn't see some standard play. I mean, a 5/5 for 5 with 3 relevant keywords is already really good. So I could see her in a lot of standard decks. Modern, I don't think she's going to see much modern play. Commander, she's going to slot into any Angel Tribal deck. Kalia, Avacyn, anything like that. She'll be pretty good in that. Other than that, for older formats, I don't really think she's going to see a whole lot of play. So next, we're going to go to Siege Gang Commander. 3 generic, 2 red for a creature goblin at rare. When Siege Gang Commander enters the battlefield, create 3 1/1 goblin creature tokens. Tap 1 generic and a red, sack a goblin. Siege Gang Commander deals 2 damage to any target, and it is a 2/2. So yeah, solid reprint. This is going to be really good in the Goblin deck if it does get enough support to be built in Standard. They basically need a Lord, and the Goblin deck could be very viable. It could actually be the next evolution of Ramen Red for Standard once that rotates out. A lot of people are saying that Goblins might get a nice boost in Core 2019, so we might have to wait a few months in order to see a Goblin deck in Standard, but it might happen. Next, we have Seal Away. 1 generic, 1 white for an enchantment at uncommon. Flash. When Seal Away enters the battlefield, exile target tapped creature an opponent controls until Seal Away leaves the battlefield. At 2 mana, this is pretty good. The Flash makes it very playable. Limited, bomb. You're going to play everyone you get pretty much. Modern, I don't see a lot of modern play for this. Commander, not really. Budget commanders might play this. Standard, I think this will be played a lot. It's just a solid enchantment. It's good removal. The downside, they have to be tapped, but for the most part, all of the really good creatures in Standard are attacking, with the exception of some of the gods like the Scarab God and things like that. But most of them want to be attacking, so this is going to be a decent removal. Next, we have Dauntless Bodyguard. for 1 white mana. It is a creature human knight at uncommon for 2/1. As Dauntless Bodyguard enters the battlefield, choose another creature you control. Sacrifice Dauntless Bodyguard. The chosen creature gains indestructible until end of turn. So this is solid. It's basically a Savannah Lions, 1 white for a 2/1, which is pretty good and just by itself. The problem with Savannah Lions is it loses relevance in the late game. This actually holds some relevance because you can sack it to save a creature. Somebody board wipes, basic removal spell, having to block, attacking in, anything like that, you can protect it, which makes Dauntless Bodyguard a little more relevant in the late game. So it might see some standard play. Other than standard, if there's a knight deck that forms in modern, it could see a little bit of play. Knights are getting a lot of support in this set, so the old modern knight deck might come back. Commander, budget commander maybe. I don't think it's going to have much relevance in competitive commander or anything like that. I don't think it's going to have much relevance in competitive commander at all. Yeah, legacy, vintage, nope. Just no. Next, we have another mythic, Daragaz Reincarnated. For 4 generic, 1 black, 1 red, and 1 green. Legendary creature dragon. Flying, trample, haste, 7/7. If Daragaz Reincarnated would die, instead exile it with 3 egg counters on it. At the beginning of your upkeep, if Daragaz is exiled with an egg counter on it, remove an egg counter from it. Then, if Daragaz has no egg counters on it, return it to the battlefield. Alright, so this has a lot of versatility. Dodges removal pretty well. Can still be exiled. So, like Vraska's Contempt, Settle the Wreckage, things like that are going to get rid of it permanently. But it can block really well. The Flying, Trample, and Haste gives it a little bit of inevitability. It's going to get in for some damage most of the time. If they decide to straight up destroy it, then it puts him on a 3-turn clock. And then he's back in and he's able to swing immediately and try and get through, another 7 damage. So I think this is standard playable. There's a lot of other cards that are kind of similar. So it has the inevitability of a Rekindling Phoenix, which sees standard play right now, with a larger body and 3 relevant keywords. So I think this could see standard play. It could be a top-end finisher. Modern, it's not going to see play. This could be fun in Commander. It might see play as a 99. I don't see it working great as a Commander itself, but it could go into the 99 and be pretty good. Older formats, it's a no. Alright, next we have Muldrotha, the Gravetide, and this is probably the one card that I'm most excited about for Commander. I literally cannot wait to brew with this. I've already started. It is a 3 generic, 1 black, 1 green, and 1 blue, so Sultai colors, for a legendary creature elemental avatar at Mythic. She is a 6/6, and during each of your turns, you may play up to 1 permanent card of each permanent type from your graveyard. If a card has multiple permanent types, choose one as you play it. So, basic graveyard recursion. She's probably the most efficient graveyard recursion stapled onto a commander yet. You're not limited to 1 card per turn. It can be any type of permanent. So, you could pull back a creature, an enchantment, an artifact, and, a land. This is amazing with fetch lands and stuff. You can just keep thinning your deck and keep building your land base. So I think that she's going to be a lot of fun to brew around in Commander. I don't foresee much standard play, if any. She might be fringe decks, for fun decks, things like that. I don't think she's going to be anything competitive. Older formats, no, I don't see her being in modern, legacy, vintage, anything like that. But she is going to be a commander all-star. Next, we have Goblin Warchief. One generic, two red for a creature goblin warrior at uncommon. He is a 2/2. Goblin spells you cast cost one less to cast, and goblins you control have haste. Again, the goblin deck is shaping up to be pretty decent here. All they really need is a lord, and it could be very viable in standard. Goblin Warchief is now legal in modern, so that is going to shake it up a little bit. I don't know if it's going to be enough to pull the Goblin deck up to tier 1, tier 1.5, but it's certainly going to try. This is in pretty much every single Goblin build in legacy formats and stuff. It's just a solid, efficient creature, and it's definitely going to be put into and now that it's modern legal, it's definitely going to be in modern goblins. So I'm looking forward to seeing what happens. Next, we have Karn, Scion of Urza, getting into our first Planeswalker. So he is colorless, 4 generic mana, legendary Planeswalker Karn at Mythic. +1, reveal the top 2 cards of your library. An opponent chooses one of them. Put that card into your hand and exile the other with a silver counter on it. -1, put a card you own with a silver counter on it from exile into your hand. -2, create a 0/0 colorless construct artifact creature token with this creature gets +1/+1 for each artifact you control. And he starts at 5 loyalty. Alright. So I think this is a little underrated by a lot of people right now. They were expecting, another Karn Liberated and got this instead. So let's try and dissect it a little bit. First off, 4 mana for 5 loyalty is really good to start. It's out of, Bolt range, out of Boros Charm range, stuff like that for modern. It's pretty good. The +1 gives you some card advantage. Granted, your opponent gets to choose which card you get. It's still an advantage. -1, you can get that card that they didn't want you to have. And the -2, that could be a good finisher, getting you a lot of value, especially if you're in an artifact build. Now, I think that this will see a lot of standard play. It's just very good for standard. Limited, it's going to be a very good card. You're going to have to build around it a little bit, I think, but it's still going to be pretty good. Modern, I think this could see a home in several decks. It's going to see... It could very well see a home in a lot of control builds for the card advantage and then the inevitability with the constructs. I would like to test this with, 1 or 2 of in Affinity. I don't know if there's room for it, but one of the problems that I've seen with a lot of Infinity decks is they drop their hands and then the disruption comes and they just have a hard time rebuilding. So the card advantage might help them rebuild a little bit quicker, and the -2 is going to keep a steady stream of creatures coming out. So I think this has a home in modern. Legacy vintage, I don't foresee a home there. I think this card's a bit too slow, but we'll see how it shapes up. Next, we have Adeliz the Cinder Wind. 3 mana, 1 generic, 1 red, 1 blue. Legendary creature, human wizard, flying, haste for a 2/2. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, wizards you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. So basically wizard prowess. I think this is really good. If a wizard deck forms in standard or modern, I think this has a place in it. Being a legendary creature hurts it a little bit, makes it a little bit clunkier, but being able to give your all of your wizards +1/+1 whenever you cast a spell is really nice. You have Opt, you have in modern you have Remand, Mana Leak, anything like that, Bolt. This could really add up, especially if you have a Delver down and a Snapcaster Mage, or what was the one from earlier, Naban, Dean of Iteration. This could really pump you and put you over the edge. And the fact that it has haste as well is really nice. It has flying, so it has some evasion. So I think this could have a home in modern. Other than that, I don't really foresee it being a build around in Commander. It could go into the 99 for the Analia deck. Yeah, all in all, a decent card, I think. So that is all of the spoilers we have for April 3rd. We'll be coming back with some more for you for the 4th, and I hope you enjoyed. Like, share, subscribe, leave a comment, and have a great day.